What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn, and today we're going to be talking about the quarterback controversy surrounding Nick Mullins and Jimmy Garoppolo. Matt, this has kind of been a heated topic. Coach Shanahan even brought it up himself recently. He answered a question and said there is no scenario in which Nick supplants Jimmy as starter, regardless of how well he plays while Jimmy is out. Why do you think 49ers fans are rooting for Nick to be the starter so much?
It's the same thing that happened in Miami when Ryan Tannehill was the starter, and they looked at Tannehill would get hurt, and then Matt Moore comes off the bench, and Matt Moore has a good game, and they're like, "Oh, Matt Moore's the guy. Matt Moore's the guy." If you didn't know better, you'd think Miami was thinking Matt Moore was the second coming of Dan Marino. Being the backup quarterback is the most glamorous job in the NFL. You know what I mean? Because you make your money, you don't put yourself in the line of fire. And when the starter struggles, you're obviously the next man up, and everybody wants to see what you can do. But, I was listening to Colin Cowherd, and he was talking about this in terms of, there was some quarterback controversy in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz where Doug Peterson had to answer the same question. "Oh, you think about going to Jalen Hurts?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? Carson Wentz is the starter." And it's one of those situations where Cowherd's analogy was, it's like your in-laws, you know what I mean? A little bit goes a long way. If they stay at your house once, you're like, "Oh man, that guy, he's like, they're the best. We should hang out with them more often." If they stay for 2 nights or more, you're like, "Oh, I could go without ever seeing them again." And it's kind of like one of those things. Be careful what you wish for with Nick Mullins. He had a great game against the Giants, but I will not take that away from him. He made some bad throws. He was late on some throws, and you see that if you actually watch the tape and don't just read a stat line like so many people seem to do. But overall, with what he was asked to do, with how many pieces were missing, he did a fantastic job. That's not to say that would continue. He had a fantastic game against the Raiders when he came in. What did he finish after that game? He was 2-5 after that game. So, and I think he had 3 touchdowns in that Raiders game, which means he was 10 touchdowns, 10 interceptions the rest of the way. So one game does not make or break or decide a quarterback competition. And in this case, there's not even one, because Jimmy Garoppolo is just flat out better than Nick Mullins. And the way that Kyle answered that question, there's no scenario where that ever happens. That just tells you that's what he thinks. He was on the interview with KMBR when he announced that Nick Mullins was going to start against the Giants or whatever. And he even said, it's great that we have good backups, but that, we all know that they're not on the same level as Jimmy Garoppolo. He's telling you flat out, there is no controversy. People just need things to talk about. It's the same when people come up with wacky trade predictions or, Odell's disgruntled again. Well, let's just trade for Odell, or, oh, let's go get Antonio Brown out of free agency. They always want something. The fan base is never happy. You give them a Super Bowl, and the next thing they're going to be like is like, well, how do we do it again next year? Okay, that was fun. Day after, they're going to be like, well, how do we do it again next year? So it's just one of those things where no one's going to be happy, and there is no actual competition. It's Jimmy Garoppolo's job. It's not even close, and Nick Mullins is going to get some shine now. The luster will wear off if he has to play more than a couple games. So you hope Jimmy gets healthy and comes back as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think I was watching that same episode of The Herd with Colin Cowherd, and I believe it was him that said it's almost like the unknown. You want to go with it because you're not sure what the backup quarterback has. You just kind of get tired if the starter's playing, a boring game. They're not lighting it up. The unknown is always better than the known, and the grass is always greener on the other side. So the fans are probably thinking, let's see what this guy's got, and then obviously, I remember when they pulled Brian Hoyer and put CJ Beathard in, and everybody was going crazy saying, wow, CJ's the guy. Maybe the 49ers have something in him. And then a couple games.
Hard for Beathard or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Be hard for Beathard. That's right. So that wore out really quickly. And, I'm happy for Nick Mullins that he's had some really good games, a couple of really good games with the 49ers. But that's not sustainable. I don't think that's him as a quarterback. He has the mentality, and I think he's definitely bright enough. It seems like from everything I've read, the guy's got a tremendous football IQ. He knows the game. He processes his reads really well, but the physical traits are just not there with him.
Not there.
He doesn't have the arm needed to kind of match his brain. And that kind of leads me to my next question, Matt, is what does Nick have that Jimmy doesn't have, if anything?
Patience. I think that Jimmy gets a little bit impatient with his reads and he wants to get the ball out. And I think some of that is due to, some mental hurdles he's still going to overcome. And you'll probably see it again. He'll probably have happy feet in the pocket after getting hurt again. So, he's going to want to guard his knee. He's going to want to guard his ankle. He's going to want to get the ball out quick. And sometimes that leads him to miss his backside reads a little bit. And then the other thing, too, is that because Nick Mullins knows that he doesn't have these physical traits, he's not going to make some of the throws that Jimmy is going to make. I saw somebody on Twitter that was like, Nick makes throws that Jimmy would never try to throw. And I'm like, Jimmy will try to throw everything everywhere. It's just not always a good idea. It's just Jimmy has far more arm talent than Nick Mullins does. And you can see it in the fact that sometimes he makes bad decisions because he's a little bit too in love with his arm and he'll try to throw it or fit a ball in a tight window that, he has no business putting it in. So to me, it's patience and really, because of the lack of physical traits for Nick Mullins, he trusts the system implicitly, without question. Whatever Kyle draws up, he's going to draw up. Whereas Jimmy can fall in love with his physical gifts a little bit, and then, that gets him in trouble because he's working outside of the scheme, and that can lead to disaster sometimes. And that one Jimmy throw we see everywhere where you're just like, what are you doing? So that's really where I see the differences. To me, Nick Mullins, is a weaker armed, but smarter Mitch Trubisky. That's what he is to me. He's a guy he's always going to work hard. He's always going to be one of the hardest workers in the room. He's never going to light up anything. He's never going to be the perfect ball placement because let's be real, Nick Mullins' ball placement is not that good. He was behind on a bunch of throws, but at the same time, he makes better decisions than Trubisky, and he's in that same vein. He's semi, kind of, sort of, a little bit athletic, but he's never going to be that top shelf starter. So that's the difference that I see between the two.
Yeah, that's actually a really good comparison. And as far as Nick, it seems like I don't know if I want to say he processes and goes through his read better than Jimmy, but I think patience, like you said, it factors into so much.
Yeah, it's Jimmy won't get to those last reads because he wants to get the ball out. Nick will kind of dance a little bit in the pocket and move and try to get that last read, but he will make it through. It's not that he reads them faster. It's that he trusts the system enough to go through all of them to begin with, whereas Jimmy's like, no, I got to get the ball out.
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, what it is, because and maybe Jimmy's injury history kind of plays into that. Maybe that internal clock in his brain is ticking even faster because he's thinking, absolutely, the longer I hold on to this ball, I have more chance I have getting injured. So, yeah, all of those things factor into it. And I was listening to, I believe it was Middlecoff, and he was saying, like Nick has the confidence. Nick has kind of like the extreme confidence of a quarterback that's kind of never really not succeeded, and he hasn't had tremendous success in the NFL, but the few times that he's been called on, he's done well. But I think that would change drastically if he suddenly became the guy. Jimmy has all of the pressure of being the guy, and he has all of the female fan base, so to speak. They love him for his looks. The 49ers, all of the men think that he can get the job done. Most of them think he can get the job done. He's a really competent quarterback. And he got that huge contract. He's the face of the franchise, at least when it comes to, quarterbacks. And there's a lot of pressure on him. And for Nick, he's kind of going out there like, hey, I got nothing to lose. I got my second string quarterback salary. And the only thing I can do is gain and get a contract out of this. And that kind of leads me to my next question is, do you think the 49ers will get enough from Nick Mullins to trade him? And do you think they would pull the trigger on it if they got something they liked?
Why would you? Everybody knows what he is. Despite what Twitter would tell you, the people who are in the know that Nick Mullins is not the guy. Just listen to Greg Cosell, just listen to any of these big time scouts, any of these guys that have been in the league and worked with personnel, the Trent Dilfers of the world. They'll tell you, yeah, he's a gamer, but he's not a starter. And what he should do is he should put himself right in the back of Kyle Shanahan's pocket and be his Gary Kubiak, be his 10, 11, 12-year backup quarterback. You
Mhm.
carve out yourself a nice living doing that, and you'll get some spot starts here and there, enough to make sure that your name is thrown around. Maybe you'll get some, seasons where somebody takes a chance on you, like they do on like a Ryan Fitzpatrick or something. But let's call it what it is. He's a career backup. He's a Josh McCown. He's a Trent Dilfer. He's a, all these, whoever you want to think of, who carved out a nice career, 10, 11, 12 years, being a backup quarterback, sticking with a coach and sticking with a scheme. It's the same thing. Brian Hoyer has been in New England how many times? He's worked with Belichick disciples how many times? It's because they know what to expect out of that guy, and they know that he's going to sit there and, he knows the systems. He's not going to make mistakes. He's going to work well with the scout team to get the defense prepared. It's going to be all these things, and that's what Nick Mullins can do. He's never going to be a guy that's going to be like, oh, well, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to trade a second-round pick for Nick Mullins. We're going to trade a third-round pick for Nick Mullins. We're going to give Nick Mullins $28 million a year to come play quarterback for us. No, that's not going to happen. He's a career backup, and if he knew it was good for him, he would stick himself in Kyle Shanahan's good graces for the rest of his career and just follow him around like a dog. Not to say that he is a dog, but you know what I mean. Like, coaches have their guys. Kyle, we see it on the 49ers. Kyle has his guys. Tevin Coleman has done nothing in a 49ers uniform, essentially, but he still has a job because Kyle likes him. So, we see it. Mohamed Sanu is here. I think he had one catch last week, and I was like, wait, Mohamed Sanu. Oh, okay. Because we talk about, we talked about in the last episode, Debo coming back and Kittle coming back, and we're talking about how it's going to make Ayuk and Kendrick Bourne better. But it's like, whoa, I forgot Mohamed Sanu is here. Like, okay, I forgot about that guy. And if he can get it going, so to me, he's not going to be that guy that you trade for. It's like the same thing when people are like, trade CJ Beathard or trade Dante Pettis. It's like, well, you have to have value to trade those people, and they don't have any. They have intrinsic value to the 49ers because they've been here. But to everybody else, they know what those guys are. So, I don't think there's any scenario where he gets traded or the 49ers get anything significant from him leaving. If anything, he'd leave in free agency, maybe because he gets an extra $1 million or $2 million from somebody else to go be a backup there.
I think a lot of people needed to hear that because they're thinking, based off of his performance last week, they can get a second-round pick for the guy. And it's like, no way can the 49ers get a second-round pick for Nick Mullins. At best, maybe a sixth round or I don't know. I don't think that teams would be willing to trade for him. I don't even know of any quarterback needy teams right now that are that needy to pull the trigger. But just like you said, I think Kyle Shanahan, he's lost Jimmy recently in the last couple of years for the whole year. And that year kind of was thrown in the trash. And, it did net the 49ers Nick Bosa. So they came out on top there. But I don't think he'd be willing to kind of go through that again. I think Nick Mullins is a serviceable backup quarterback. He's a guy that can come in there and win you 50% of your games, like we talked about previously when Nick was announced that he was going to be the starter. That's what you hope from a backup, is that he can win 50% of your games. I think Nick Mullins could do that on a good enough team. But I don't think he's good enough to take the reins for a team and be the face of a franchise and be like a, Kurt Warner or Steve Young. And, he was a backup and then he suddenly became the guy. I don't see that happening, unfortunately, for Nick. No offense to him, no disrespect to him. I just don't see that trajectory in his future. What I do actually see in his future, and I'm curious to get your take on this, is coaching. I think the guy has a phenomenal brain and he really, really gets a good grasp on the offense. And I think he could kind of transition into maybe coaching in the future once he's done in the NFL, become a quarterback's coach, positions coach, just kind of work his way up. I think he's got the perfect kind of just attitude for it and mentality for it. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. Gary Kubiak was a good coach. I know he had some health problems and, he ended up leaving and, doing that. I think there wasn't there one game where he had like a stroke or something on the sideline. I don't know. There was something that happened to him, and that was, unfortunate. And I think health kind of pulled him out. But you see it right now. Doug Peterson, I'm pretty sure he was a backup quarterback somewhere. The name sounds familiar, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But what I know for sure is Frank Reich in Indianapolis. He was Jim Kelly's backup for a long time. And, and it's so funny because I believe he was the guy that came in when Jim Kelly got hurt and led that huge comeback against the Houston Oilers in that playoff game. So, we talk about be careful what you wish for with some of these guys, like you think they're really good. But back to Nick Mullins, I think because of his preparation, because he trusts the system and he's learning the system inside and out, he could be one of those guys where after he's done, he's part of the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree now. He starts working under Kyle and starts to spread his wings a little bit. And then all of a sudden you see, oh, Nick Mullins is the offensive coordinator somewhere. Oh, Nick Mullins is now getting a head coaching opportunity. And you see that a lot with guys who, might not necessarily have been the best players, but, get the game. They understand the game. They understand the X's and O's. We see it Wes Welker with the 49ers. Wes Welker was really good for a couple of years, but then he had to learn the game on the sideline because he had the concussion issues. It's one of those things where you see a lot of people who used to be players get into coaching. Mike Vrabel is now a coach. You look at all these people who are former players who are now coaches or in front offices or are scouts, and there is a place for Nick Mullins in the league after he's done playing. And I think that's a really good point to bring up that, he's not going to be a Hall of Fame player, but because of his preparation, because of the fact that he works so hard, you have to wonder, after he's done, that the IQ is there, the football IQ is there to be a head coach. So whether it's in college, whether he starts, at the bottom, whether he gets in with Kyle or somebody else, I do think that's a distinct possibility, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, we'll have to leave it at that, guys. Doug Peterson, backup for Brett Favre, according to Wikipedia, at least.
That's right, Green Bay.
Yeah, but that's going to do it for us today, guys. I want to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. If you like what you see, support the channel, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below. Do you think that Nick Mullins has a future in the NFL? Do you think he's a possible starter? Do you think coaching is in his future? Drop a comment below and make sure you like this video as well.
Go ahead and click the bell for notifications every time we drop a video so you don't miss one. So until next time, go Niners.